Tactical to practical. Tactical, the tank. The ultimate battlefield weapon.
Tanks are tracks, armor, and a really big gun.
Practical, tracked vehicles, where wheels won't work.
Beast is unleashed!
Tactical, satellites rewrite the rules of war.
It's about as fighting as smart as you can.
Practical, satellites orbit the planet and see astounding detail.
That has given us a view of the world that no one has ever had before.
Tactical, parachutes insert shock troops behind enemy lines.
Everything's better, stronger, faster.
Practical, parachutes put smoke jumpers on the fire line and give thrill seekers the ride of their lives. Tactical to practical, developed for tactical advantage, declassified for practical use.
Hi, I'm Hunter Ellis. The tank is the most devastating weapon on the battlefield. The tactical key to mobility is the tank's track. Now what if you could bolt a set of these babies onto your SUV? Well now, with a set of these mat tracks, you can make your own PAV. That's Personal Assault Vehicle. Sweet!
Tracks make a tank a tank.
Tanks got bigger, faster, and meaner.
Tracks on civilian vehicles take us through snow and sand with ease.
I think this is the gnarliest truck I've ever seen.
Mat tracks turn an ordinary vehicle into an off-road adventure machine. And they may also find their way back to the military on future Humvees.
So how'd we get here? Well, to find out, we first have to go back across the sands of time.
In World War I, before the invention of the tank, the British and French troops were mired in a landscape of mud, barbed wire, and trenches along the Western Front. The British needed a tough vehicle that could plow through mud and across trenches, a tank to clear a path for the infantry. Inspiration for the tank came from an unlikely source, a steam-powered prairie schooner called the Phoenix Log Hauler.
The Phoenix Log Hauler was one of the things in the early 1900s that were used by these Wisconsin loggers. It was a tracked vehicle with skids or wheels that were used to pull logs around.
The British military applied design elements of the log hauler to their tactical dilemma and built the first tanks. But they had to solve a major problem: how to steer them.
They eliminated the wheels and devised a way to independently drive the left and right sets of tracks. With these levers, the driver could stop one side while the other side continued, creating a turn, thus giving the tank extreme mobility.
Tanks through the Second World War got bigger, faster, and meaner. The primary tank of all the U.S. and British forces was the Sherman.
At the Battle of the Bulge in the winter of 1944, General George Patton and his Sherman tanks sent the Germans running toward the Rhine, turning the tide of war in the favor of the Allies.
The Germans had both their Panthers and their Tiger series, enormous, very powerful vehicles. But there's always a penalty. There's a price for that. In this case, those big, heavy vehicles would do 12 miles an hour, where the Sherman could do nearly 30.
After World War II, the need for more speed and tougher armor drove the evolution of the tank.
From 1945 through the fall of the Berlin Wall, the U.S. and the Russians were involved in a tremendous arms race. They made bigger, faster, meaner tanks that would do things that the World War II folks would never dream possible.
Far from the battlefield, creative minds dreamed up ways to put tank tracks to practical use. One dream led to the invention of the snowmobile. In the late 30s, a Canadian named Bombardier attached modified tank tracks to an automobile chassis. It didn't look anything like today's recreational hot rod on skis. It was initially designed as a winter school bus. In 1959, by wrapping small wheels with a single wide rubber belt and adding steerable skis to the front, the bus became the Ski-Doo. Another idea was applied years later to an ATV. Called Lightfoot, individual tracks replaced each tire. These personal mountain goats are virtually unstoppable in swampy mud, sand, and snow. But when the snow melts up north, snowmobilers don't put the snowmobiles away. Greatly improved tracks combined with much more powerful engines, when taken to the extreme, turns them into asphalt drag racers. Modified polyurethane wheels, good for 10,000 RPM, replace the front skis, and power is laid down through a non-cleated smooth track, much like a racing slick on a dragster. These speed junkies have been known to hit 160 miles per hour in the quarter. And with much more powerful engines, summer sledheads learned how to walk on water. Each war had its own vehicular personality.
In World War II, they had the Jeep. In Vietnam, the Huey. And in the Gulf War, they had the Humvee. But in Baghdad, it was the Bradley and the Abrams that rocked Iraq.
The Abrams tank is more like the Ferrari of tanks.
Okay.
It's quick, it's responsive, and it's fast.
It's got to be a rush to drive one of these things. You know, tell me what it's like.
Oh, it's like if you ever gone out four-wheeling.
Yeah.
It's like that times 10.
Okay.
You got the track. You can pretty much go almost anywhere you want to go. Plus, you have a really big cannon on there, and you can make things go boom.
You can also get a big boom out of its battle companion, the Bradley Fighting Vehicle.
So this is the fighting part in the Bradley Fighting Vehicle.
This is the fighting part. This is the weapons station.
All right, so I'm in the gunner's compartment, right?
Yep.
And you are in the...
I'm the commander.
How many rounds can I fire?
You can fire a total of 300 rounds.
And
Has
what?
300 ready rounds.
At what rate?
200 rounds per minute, max rate.
Well, now that I'm in the driver's compartment, this strangely enough looks pretty familiar and easy.
Yeah, if you can drive a car, you can drive a Bradley. I mean, you got a steering yoke, you turn left to go left, right to go right, 3-speed automatic transmission, accelerator pedal, and a brake pedal. What could be simpler?
Sounds like a no-brainer. Let's take it for a ride.
The Bradley Fighting Vehicle is sort of the SUV of the battlefield. It runs with the Abrams, has a 25mm cannon up on top for sizzle, and you can stuff 7 grunts in the back for a ride to the battle.
This is the squad leader's display, and that gives you the situational awareness, gives the squad leader as well as the commander of the turret. We can press this button here, and it gives us a picture of what the gunner's sight is seeing.
Wow.
Or we can do
That is awesome.
Or we can actually do this here, and this is what the commander's sight. There's 2 sights here. There's one for the gunner, a gunner's sight, and there's what they call commander's independent viewer.
Take a closer look at what Tank Tracks inspired for today's off-roader.
This thing rocks. Ready?
The ultimate mountain climber.
I think this is the gnarliest truck I've ever seen.
A 3/4-ton Ford 4x4 with individual tank treads where the tires should be.
I'm speechless.
Now I know what I want for Christmas.
This full-on gonzo terrain goat can climb or swim through just about anything Mother Nature puts in its path.
The beast is unleashed. Compared to your 4x4 with its 15-inch lift and its PlayStations and LCD screens, keep that thing on the soccer field. The ultimate mountain climber? Well, this is the real deal. You want a piece of me?
No, I want the whole pie.
Well, bring it on. Ready? We're checking out tanks and tank tracks and how they've gone from war weapons to civilian recreational vehicles.
Modifying your SUV into an urban assault vehicle is, well, practical if your commute is the toughest sand, the deepest snow, or a muddy swamp. Just bolt on a set of Mat-Track treads and even highway commuters get out of your way. Southern California, dune country, where they've seen every kind of off-road vehicle.
I've never seen anything like this in my life.
Wouldn't see it anywhere else but on a tank in the Army. Out in Iraq, maybe.
You want a piece of me?
But we wanted to put these babies to the test, so we challenged this big lift 4x4 with major attitude, riding on a set of aired-down dune tires.
See ya, sucker!
King of the hill, baby. Take that! Yes!
These eye-popping treads ride on a welded steel frame. The 16-inch wide track distributes the weight down to as little as 1.5 pounds per square inch. Ouch! Now let's see that again. And please, don't try this at home. At age 11, Matt Brazier drew this picture of a truck with treads and asked his dad, could you make one of these?
Everybody knows that a tank can go almost anywhere. A vehicle equipped with Mat-Tracks can go anywhere a tank can go, plus in some cases even further.
In June of 2002, the Minnesota town of Roseau experienced their worst flood in 100 years. The call went out for help. Glenn's company sent a number of Mat-Track equipped vehicles to the rescue. The tracked 4x4s crossed deep water, pulled trapped residents from their homes, and provided emergency medical transportation. Mat-Tracks are popping up on police, fire, and ambulance vehicles wherever there's tough terrain. And going full circle, the Department of Defense has asked Mat-Tracks to equip a number of Humvees for tactical military evaluation. But if you like the idea, be ready to grab your wallet. They start at around $22,000 a set. But the attitude factor? Priceless. But nothing has attitude like an Abrams M1. Desert Storm was the Abrams tank's baptismal. It took less than 100 hours for an armored door to slam shut on Saddam Hussein. And it was the Abrams that made the difference.
A captured Iraqi Republican Guards tank commander said during a 20-minute battle with the M1A1s, I lost my entire command.
The big M1 Abrams is the world's preeminent tank because it combines 4 crucial qualities. Electronics. Using GPS and thermal imaging, Big Abe will find you anywhere on the horizon. Firepower. With its 120mm gun, it'll pound targets 5 miles away with the Silver Bullet tank killer shell.
Armor. Its depleted uranium armor repels explosive shells. And because of tracks, it tears through terrain at 45 miles an hour. The tactical advantage in Iraq was electronics. Acquisition of targets using infrared, laser, and GPS all but eliminated enemy opposition. Though the M1 was the big hitter in Iraq, the heavy, noisy M1's top speed is 45 miles per hour. That's not exactly fast. The warriors of the future will need a fast and furious off-road vehicle. And here we have the tank of the future running in whisper mode. This is the Future Combat System wheeled vehicle where the rubber meets the road.
It runs on tires. Under the hood is a hybrid jet electric power plant. The 400 horsepower jet spins a generator, charging 44 lead-acid batteries.
And when you need to get the troops there fast, this is the vehicle that's going to do it. And you can just cruise. How fast will this baby go?
Oh, well, 70 top speed, but 0 to 30 in less than 8 seconds.
The electric 8x8 also comes in a band track version. The one-piece composite track eliminates the noisy steel track and runs fast and quiet.
I want to see this baby in action.
Oh yeah, it really hauls.
All right.
Abrams engineers are also working on an 8-wheeled electric machine. When the going gets rough, this sneaky back tank slips treads on over the tires. Surprise! While future vehicles live in computers,
tank tracks haven't changed that much. The big change has been the electronics inside. Today's tanks are smart, and you have to be even smarter to operate one. And that's where simulators come in.
Tank training in a virtual battlefield is a huge part of learning to drive a Bradley. Future tank jocks get a 3-day session in this simulator at Fort Hood, Texas, before getting behind the wheel of an actual Bradley.
You know, they just didn't toss me the keys to the F-18 and I went out and started turning and burning. I spent a lot of time in simulators like this, pretty much crashing and burning. And to get your keys to the Bradley, it is very much the same thing. Ah, he's dead. All right, let's go swat these guys over here.
This is really the only way of effectively training soldiers under simulated battle conditions without actually destroying a lot of hardware.
Can we shoot him?
This current simulator, which is one of our latest generation simulators, uses standard Windows PCs that you would find on your desk or anybody's home.
A dozen computers recreate the battlefield so realistically, it can max out a tank jockey's abilities. Every control works like the real thing. Every movement is reflected on the big screen. And if you make a mistake here, well, at least you can come back for more.
More than likely, you're never going to get a chance to drive a tank or get in a simulator. But there is a way to try the next best thing. Oh, it sucks.
Giant game maker EA Games utilized the same powerful NVIDIA computer chip found in military simulators to produce the texture-rich graphics and blazing action in Battlefield 1942, The Road to Rome, one of the hot tank games you can play on your home computer.
The military really started this with their simulators years ago, and we've taken advantage of what they've done in building the quality game we can. They've really set the bar.
I thought I'd go mano a mano with Wendell, a real Bradley tank driver.
I'm sending you home in a box.
You going down, Flyboy.
From the tactical tank track to the practical snowmobile and mat tracks for trucks, cruising without wheels can take you places you've never been before.
This rocks!
Getting some stick time in a tank in the heat of battle first requires some joystick time in a sophisticated and expensive simulator, like this one for the Bradley fighting vehicle. Computer games like Battlefield 1942, The Road to Rome, are about as close as most of us will ever get to driving a tank.
Our game is skill-based. It's skill and we feed the ego. Well, the guy that's a really good Bradley tank driver isn't necessarily going to be a good driver in our game.
Give me an airplane.
Okay, he took me in a tank game, but I could smoke him in a flight sim. From crude log hauler, to the mighty Abrams, to mat tracks, and the Road to Rome, the tank has rolled its tactical tracks across our practical world. Satellites gave U.S. forces in Iraq a commanding view of the battlefield. Satellites let civilians map cities, fight fires, and find their way. October 4th, 1957. Some called it the shock of the century.
It appeared in 1957 that the Soviet Union had captured the high frontier first.
The Soviet Union had launched Sputnik, the world's first satellite. It wasn't much bigger than a beach ball and could only transmit meaningless radio blips. But it struck fear into the heart of the American public.
We rushed the rest of ours to development and far outstripped their progress very quickly.
The space race was underway. The U.S. Air Force and CIA struggled to catch up with a top-secret project called Corona. Its aim? To use satellites to see behind the Iron Curtain. The era of space surveillance had begun. The program went on to photograph more than 1 million square miles of Soviet territory.
The Cold War drove the quest to put satellites into space, but it wasn't long before that technology was put to civilian use.
(1962). NASA launches Telstar, the world's first active communication satellite. This was the world's first satellite television transmission, sent from AT&T's Earth station in Andover, Maine via Telstar, and received at a listening station in France. Today, communication satellites transmit our phone traffic and allow us to watch our favorite shows at home or wherever we go. And now, 40 years after the first television transmission, satellite radio delivers uninterrupted, commercial-free radio programming coast to coast. But nowhere have satellites had a greater impact than in the armed forces.
Satellites allow us to see the whole battle space. It now means you can strike anywhere, anytime, often many different places simultaneously.
Iraq, 1991. The pivotal event in the use of satellites by the modern military was the Gulf War. Satellites were used for surveillance, navigation, and communications with stunning success.
I worked for the Central Command during that conflict, and I remember vividly a column of armor moving on the left hook into the Iraqi desert. Satellite assets were used to communicate directly with that column of tanks as to where 2 Iraqi divisions were sighted. It was as though we were playing a chess game in which we could see both sides of the board, and our opponent could only see his own pieces.
Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2003 was the first fully networked war. Over 100 satellites fed data into the military machine. Spy satellites provided reconnaissance images said to be capable of reading a newspaper headline. GPS satellites guided missiles. And communication satellites provided encrypted messaging across the battlefield. Satellite video phones revolutionized television coverage during the conflict, bringing us unprecedented scenes from the battlefield.
All the satellite data in the world is absolutely no good unless you have a way to quickly and accurately process it. This is where all that information is fused together. This is a reality center.
They call it a reality center because the simulations are created from actual satellite images.
A lot of times the old technology in flight simulation was animation, creating fake hills, fake plants, fake trees, what have you, and then flying through the hillsides. What you see behind you is the complex at Nellis Air Force Base, Nevada. And I say that real confidently because all of this is real imagery. So what you see on the mountain, what you see on the ground is really there.
Iraq, 2003. The U.S. Joint Command used reality centers to monitor progress and plan their next moves. satellite images are also used to create 3D models of cities, used to organize security measures to guard against terrorist attack.
We can click on the corner of this building right here and fly to that building as if we were standing there. If I am a Secret Service agent, I know that from that vantage point on the building, I can protect anybody within the park or coming down the causeway.
Civilians rely on the global positioning satellites developed by the military to safely navigate around town.
At the end of the road, turn right.
But satellites have also revolutionized the study of weather, and there are those who rely on the data they provide to safely navigate across the sea. Today, thanks to weather satellites, ship captains can see ocean conditions up to 10 days ahead.
This helps them actually avoid severe weather out there and typhoons. Also take a better route to increases fuel efficiency.
Satellite imagery was once the exclusive domain of top secret government agencies spying on hostile foreign powers. But now, from Hamburg to Hollywood, San Francisco to the Statue of Liberty, there's hardly a place on the planet that hasn't come under the gaze of an eye in the sky. And now, for a fee, you and I can order a picture of our choosing from outer space.
I'm on the roof of our production office. I've taken a GPS reading and called those coordinates into Digital Globe.
Digital Globe is one of the commercial satellite companies that provide images to urban planners, real estate companies, or anyone who wants to get a new perspective on their environment. Somewhere overhead, their satellite called QuickBird is closing in at over 10,000 miles an hour, just to take my picture.
Got about 3 more minutes. I'd better get rolling. All right, should be good to go. My mark has been made, H for Hunter. And somewhere, a couple 100 miles up there, QuickBird should be taking my picture. Cheese!
Satellites. Changing the rules of war, and more a part of everyday life. Right down to ordering up your own satellite picture on demand. And that's just what I did.
Cheese!
Once the satellite has snapped your image, Digital Globe downloads it to their operations center in Colorado, where it's adjusted to create the clearest image and emailed to the buyer.
All right, let's check out what we got here. It's not bad. There's the building, there's my H. That is pretty awesome.
Parachutes. Air Force pararescuemen jump to save downed pilots.
These things I do that others may live.
Smoke jumpers drop onto raging wildfires. And adrenaline junkies get their fix.
It's the worst nightmare for any pilot. Getting bagged in enemy territory and having to punch out. As a former fighter pilot, every time I suited up, it always made me feel better to know that the military has elite teams whose sole mission is to save downed aviators.
Air Force pararescuemen. They're called PJs for short. Their job is search and rescue, and the parachute is the essential tool of their trade.
In the rescue mission, speed is everything. For the downed pilot, his very survival depends on it. And the quickest way for the PJs to get to him is to jump.
These warrior medics are trained to get to a downed pilot quickly, provide medical attention, and fight off enemy threats until the cavalry can come to the rescue.
A pilot can crash anywhere from the ocean to the highest point in the mountains, the deserts, etc. And sometimes we have to use parachutes to insert and get into certain places to get the pilot and bring him out before the bad guys find him.
1943. For the first time, medical corpsmen dropped to a remote crash site in the thick jungles of Burma. This rescue team was able to reach the downed aircrew and get them out to safety. Pararescue is born.
If you want to trace the history of the Air Force pararescuemen, you first have to take a look back at the Army Airborne.
Vertical envelopment. That's the airborne story.
World War I. Primitive military chutes are deployed for the first time. The underdeveloped chutes were simple, round designs made of silk. They were used by some experimentally minded pilots. Many more wish they had them. (1941). Germany revolutionizes parachute deployment when they drop an entire battalion onto the island of Crete. This invasion marks the first time paratroops are used in such large numbers. But what the Germans started, the Americans finished. July 1943. Using updated parachutes and static lines rivaling the German designs, American paratroopers launched an attack on Sicily, an aerial assault more ambitious than anything tried before. On a dreary day in June 1944, the 101st and 82nd Airborne take to the sky to lead the D-Day invasion. Airborne is now firmly on the map, and so is the parachute.
The tactical aspect of D-Day was very crucial to be able to get as many Allied forces behind enemy lines at Utah Beach. With that said, the only way that you're going to get them there, or you're going to have to drop them in.
Today, airborne troops still use round canopies and static lines for their low-altitude jumps. But new designs and leading-edge non-porous nylon have made the chutes lighter and more controllable. The parachute also gives the military an edge at night. Dropping quietly from the sky, highly trained commando units can get behind enemy lines for decisive surgical strikes, most recently in Iraq. The Special Forces teams often fly their chutes over great distance carrying all their gear. For them, the highly maneuverable Ram Air parachutes have proven to be the steerable solution for their clandestine missions.
The tactical chute is used primarily for the Special Forces. Why? Because fewer people are dropping out of it, they're doing more free falling, and you're looking for precision landing. So what do is that you fly at much higher elevation, sometimes up to about 15 to 20,000 feet, do a long free fall, and guide yourself right into the position that you want to go into.
The Special Forces teams use the hey-low and the hey-ho jump to achieve the element of surprise. Both tactics give the troops a good shot at dropping on top of the enemy before they know what hit them.
Hey-low and hey-ho are basically the same thing. One's a high-altitude low opening and one's a high-altitude high opening, which means you jump out of a plane at a certain altitude and you either fall all the way to the earth or you jump out and you pull your parachute at a certain altitude, and then you can fly yourself into different environments.
We're at the home of the 129th Pararescue Team. The PJs need to be prepared to jump into all types of terrain under any circumstance. This is where they train.
When the pararescue team leaves their base in Mountain View, California, they have to be ready to jump with everything they'll possibly need in battle. That means packing all their medical supplies, food, water, weapons, and ammo. By the time they leave the aircraft, each PJ is weighing in at over 300 pounds.
What Hunter's basically wearing is a helmet, O2 mask, oxygen, a weapon, his rucksack, spin around.
All right.
And of course his trusty parachute.
Most important part.
In order to carry the amount of weight the PJs pack in, they need larger parachutes. These square nylon canopies are comparable to the large tandem chutes flown at civilian drop zones. The PJs have found a way to attach an extra 300 pounds of gear to their rigs. They load everything in a barrel, roll it out the back of a C-130, and ride it all the way down.
The military has played a major role in the development of the parachute, but there are other warriors who have played just as big a role. Guys who think nothing of jumping out of an airplane into a raging wildfire.
Smoke jumpers. These firefighters were the first to see the potential of the parachute as a means of getting personnel into remote areas. And getting to a fire before it gets out of control saves thousands of acres of timber and entire towns from disaster. With no roads into the wilderness, the parachute is indispensable.
Using parachutes to put people on fires revolutionized firefighting. In the old days, you had to hike into fires, you know. They called them smoke chasers, and that literally could take 2 days of hard hiking. So by the time you got in there, you know, the fire practically met you halfway, and it was big now. Getting smoke jumpers in the program enabled people to put people on fires the next day. So that little fire that started the afternoon before never got a chance to get very big.
Like their counterparts in the military, civilian smoke jumpers count on tailored jumpsuits made of high-tech materials designed to save their lives.
The jumpsuit is made specifically just for the parachute jump and hitting the ground. If we jump into trees, we're going to hit branches. There's a lot of things that can poke you and jab you. So we've developed these padded jumpsuits that are made out of Kevlar. And Kevlar is what they make bulletproof vests out of, so none of this stuff can penetrate and injure you.
Jump jacket, jump pants. This is the PG bag. This is where their gear is. They got 2 quarts of water here. They got food inside, some rain gear. Radios over here. Every jumper carries a radio. 150-foot nylon webbing, let-down rope. This is how they're going to get down to the ground when and if they ever do hang up in trees, which they probably won't, right, James? Now, all these have a nice high collar, because once he gets his helmet on, any chance for a broken branch to come in here and get him in the throat's going to be shoved off. Fire retardant gloves. Well, this is a smoke jumper helmet. They developed it, everything, you know, over the years themselves. It hasn't changed a lot. This is basically a motorcycle helmet with this specially made mask. They call these things brain buckets. The best part of your body's in here, so these are very rough.
With advances in parachute technology and armed with these tools, smoke jumpers feel safer jumping into a raging wildfire. Tactical, parachutes, troops leaping behind enemy lines. Practical, smoke jumpers jumping fire. These elite firefighters use both round and square parachutes to drop onto blazing infernos. And like their counterparts in the military, each chute comes with an emergency reserve.
Parachutes, they're not packed by angels, they're packed by the human hand, and so there could be a problem in any one of those that you don't know.
They rely on their gear to guide them to safety.
We put our life and faith in parachutes.
The round chutes are guided by opening slits on either side and letting air stream through. The square parachutes are inflated when air rams into the cells of the chute. This creates a rigid wing that can be flown like a glider.
Fires must be attacked as quickly as possible in the most remote regions by trained firefighters. The airplane and the parachute are means of faster transportation.
Smoke jumping actually preceded the Army Airborne. Those first men jumping fire paved the way.
Well, you know, I have the utmost respect for the guys that got this smoke jumping thing started back in 1939 and 40. They were bold fellas to do what they did. 19, 20, 21-year-old guys. A lot of them never even been up in an airplane. They had a lot of guts.
There are just over 400 smoke jumpers in the country. It's the job of these elite firefighters to jump into the inferno to save our land. Today's thrill seekers have found another practical application for parachutes, having a great time. recreational skydivers and thrill-seeking free flyers have latched onto the latest chute technology and have taken their sport to dizzy new heights.
The technology now, I'll compare it to like the Bionic Man. Remember Steve Austin? Everything's better, stronger, and faster.
Skydiving began after World War I. These first skydivers were daredevils.
Principal users seem to be daredevil barnstormers who jump from fragile wings to thrill a Sunday crowd.
In the 1960s, the Army's Golden Knights and the Navy Leapfrogs began performing and competing at air shows. Today, these teams thrill audiences all over the world. The sport of skydiving has become so safe, just about anybody can try it.
The civilian community is like the cutting edge on parachute design right now. You're getting the maximum performance and the maximum enjoyment.
Out at drop zones across the country, recreational skydivers push the envelope to the extreme and take their sport in new directions. The latest craze in skydiving is free flying. Forget the old belly down free fall. These hardcore jumpers are turning the sport upside down. Head down, feet down, anything goes.
There's so many different things in the sport of skydiving now. You can go out there and do relative work. There's free flying. We've got guys now wearing Birdman suits. I firmly believe as technology keeps progressing, these guys will be able to jump out with a Birdman suit and land it. You know, you just don't want to be the first guy trying it.
From recreation to emergency evacuation, from, believe it or not, skyscrapers, this is the executive parachute. Taking technology from base jumping, Destiny Aircraft now makes a parachute for people who work in the upper floors of tall buildings. It's the ultimate fire escape.
Whether it's military paratroops, smoke jumpers, or even civilian free flyers, the technology has made the sport safer and a lot more fun. Let's tag along and see how fun it can be.
All right, dude, get ready. Have a good flight. Hey, why don't you come with us? I'm a pilot, man. I don't have a chute. I don't have any gear. Why don't you hook on to me? I'm game if you are. I'm game. Let's go. Let's do it. Right on. The Navy SEALs are used to jumping with tons of gear. So today, I'm simulating a 200-pound bag of ammo. Ready, set, go.
That is awesome. Tactical to practical. Tactical, the tank. It goes over, around, or through almost anything. Practical. Tank-inspired track vehicles let us claw across the toughest terrain. Tactical. Satellites reveal enemy threats to our national defense. Practical. Satellites are our own personal eye in the sky. Tactical. Parachutes allow troops to strike first and strike fast. Practical. Skydiving is the ultimate adrenaline rush. Tactical to practical. Technology moving from government deployment to everyone's enjoyment.